Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, viewers. We are back with another program of Insta, and this time we are with Paul Grove, who is the managing director of MFT, rather Maynard Façade Consultancy. He's going to join us soon. He comes on live, and then we take him on. We've gone through a very different way of working, but this is totally different today, and we'll look at it the way it comes, and we'll see what happens. Just 1 second again. For the third time, we're trying to connect him on. There is some issue somewhere. And what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to do something totally different. We have the man finally. Paul, you're on the line?
Hello.
Are you on the line? Yeah, you're on the line. I can see you.
Okay, let me give you some. It's local problems.
Local problem in UAE. I can believe you if you have a problem in India.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of restriction here on these things. So I've got technical abilities to get around them. So it's good to be with you.
Great. Nice talking to you. It's going to be a nice, interesting next 55 minutes. We've lost 2 minutes in connecting with you. And once we lost the speaker, before we both could say bye-bye. Because this gets disconnected within 60 minutes. So I made it a plan always to finish off in 57.5 minutes. Not that we facade fabricators ever finish a project 2 days before time or 2 hours before time. We are all killed sitting somewhere else in the other end of the world. Then we blame our suppliers, and you would know that better than anybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad, and to all the viewers, to introduce to you a man called Paul Grove, who's across the screen with me right now. He is the managing director of Maynard Façade, and he looks after India, Australia, and the world over. We'll go into details a little later. What's important to know about Paul is that Paul is a self-made man who started his life way down at 16 years and started his life there onwards, slowly came into the facade world. And more when we talk to him. But before we go ahead, I'd like to tell you how facade consultancy works in my language. And this is where I'm talking to you, Paul.
Okay. I'm listening.
There's a very old saying in management, in engineering management, and it always said that engineering is the ability to do for $1 what someone else would take $5. Right? So your office definitely knows how to bring down cost value, like every other good facade engineering company, but you have too much of work. Facade consultants come from different backgrounds. They have different types of they have different types of software programs. They have different CAD designs on their table. They know how to keep the heat loss out. They know how to give you energy efficiency, and they know how to bring down the value of the total cost of the project by value engineering the details. You're with me?
Correct.
And I think your office is a master ahead of many consultancies based on what I've said.
Yes.
Having said that, I'd like you to tell us a little about your background, about your high quality documents, how you got there, your personal life, how you started off, and a little story for 5-7 minutes so everybody gets excited.
Okay. So at the age of 16, I finished my school term, and it was the summer holidays. In the UK, it's from June to September. We normally have 6 to 8 weeks off. And my mother said to me, Paul, after these 6 weeks, you need to get a job, because after that, I'm not going to pay for your food.
I'm going to interrupt you here. I think there's something with all the facade consultants, architects, and and me, I don't know why, but you're the 6th speaker in a row. Everybody talks about their mother in the first 3 minutes. So hats off to all the mothers. Doesn't mean the fathers are nobody, but
my father was always working, so
the father's a Santa Claus anyway.
Yeah. yeah, so I had a very strong passion for design in terms of sketching, artwork, but a big part of that was technical design. Even in 1988, we were using very basic computer software to draw 2D pictures. So the 2D drawing work and computer work was something I really liked. And I really like buildings. I really like the concept of architecture. But an architectural degree was 7 years of my life, and that was going to cost my family a lot of money. So I needed to bring money in. So I just by chance happened to stumble into the facade industry. So my first job was with a facade contractor. And I was quite lucky because then they still did a proper apprenticeship where they brought you into the company. They had a training program. And what they did is they taught you every aspect of the company. So I started off in the warehouse where I was handling material, taking material, doing goods in notes, goods out notes, taking extrusions to the paint factory.
Great.
Then we do accounts, we do the purchasing, and then finally I managed to get into the design office.
So you're a grassroots man.
Yeah.
Grassroots.
Yeah. But sadly, after 3 years, there was a recession in the UK, and I was made redundant. But I was very lucky because I found employment pretty much straight away with Wintech, which is a very large. But back then they did subcontract design work for the facade industry. Obviously now they've diversified into being one of the biggest facade consultants in the UK. But I was kind of their first ever trainee. And I always remember at the time, Chris Macy, who's the owner, said, Paul, we took a big risk. But I really enjoyed my time there. And then there was about another 15 trainees that came after me. And obviously that business grew. And from there, I just moved to various facade contractors, worked on a lot of iconic projects in the UK, design-based, from initial concepts, working with the architects, all the way through to production, doing the production drawings, material takeoff, ordering the screws, the fixings, the silicon, every single item that was on the project that was delivered to sites, we would order. So you have a real big understanding of what materials takes and what materials can get damaged and what materials lost and where the cost is in the project. And what happens if you make a mistake in the design? What's the impact on the installation? So that's something that I stuck with until I got the opportunity to come to the Middle East, where my first employment, which was in 2009, was with Reem Emirates, which at the time, all of my friends, the people I knew, were all leaving Dubai because of the crisis. And they're saying, Paul, don't go, you're crazy, there's no work. But I got a job in quiet little Abu Dhabi, and I was working on a lot of projects there, very high-profile projects, a lot of Royal Group investment projects. I did that for 18 months, and that was really the best introduction to this region that you could have. So you really understood how this region operated differently to projects in the UK. And then I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to join Meinhardt in 2010. And nearly 10 years later, I'm still here. So.
It's very interesting to know. What I think you've forgotten to tell everybody is, from what I know of your background, that when you left home at 16 years or 17 years, what I understand, you actually, when you went to a site, your first site was a unitized site.
Yeah, the company I joined in 1988 were making unitized panels. It was for a job in Scotland. I think it's called Enoch Square. And at the same time, they also did a glazed roof light, which was the largest glazed area in Europe. So, I saw this one project maybe for a few weeks doing unitized panels, and then I never saw them again, maybe for 15 years. So.
Tell me another story. When you got on to going to Reams and you started off with Reams, did you start off straight as the CEO of the company, or you're known to be a design man, or did you get into the design office?
Yeah, so obviously we all know Derek was the CEO, so he was the big.
Sorry,
big
who was the CEO?
Derek was the CEO at the time.
Derek Bruce.
Yeah. So so I came in as like design team leader, design manager position, and there was a number of British guys, expat guys that were brought in for these positions. So I was given 12 towers on Ream Island to finish. And then there was some other British guys working with me that, you know, they had one project or two projects. And then eventually what happened is I'd get called into the office and say, you know, Paul, this guy's not performing. We're going to sack him. Can you take this work on? I'm like, okay. So I took the job. And then they call me and, Paul, this other guy, he's not working. We need you to look over him and can you take control of his job? And so in the end, I was doing all this work, but I enjoyed it so much. I just took on all the projects. I loved it, multitasking, and it was good fun. I've worked hard.
You left Emirates. I mean, nobody would like to leave a company like Ream Emirates. I mean, today you have Aliko, you have Alabar, they're all giants. How would you leave? I think you're so passionate about drawing, and then to get up and move into mine art. What took you the? What was that kick up your side on your side to say, no, I want to become a consultant now? It's very difficult for designers to get into consultancy.
I think I wanted to. I always wanted to do the best in my projects, the best detailing, the best performance. I wanted everything done properly. You know, in the UK, I left the UK and we were looking at double air seals, building pressure testing, thermal performance. And then you come to the UAE and you've got the curtain wall and the edge is just silicon. And I'm like, guys, where's the insulation? Oh, no need for insulation. I'm like, where's the weatherproofing? No need for weatherproofing. It never, no rain in the Middle East. And I thought somebody here needs to educate people. And, you know, it's about giving back a lot of my knowledge, practical knowledge. And I thought it's time that I started giving something back, and I wanted to have that opportunity. So, and you know, when I joined Minehearts, I knew that I just had to keep my head down and work for 12 months and learn really how to be a consultant and how to act as a consultant.
So that was a beautiful journey. That was a beautiful journey till you got into Mineheart. So when you got to Mineheart, did you straight away come in as the managing director?
No, I mean, obviously you spoke to Matthew the other day. He was at the time he was the managing director.
Right.
And he'd been there a long time. So I was obviously to become regional director of the Dubai office, I think was a kind of natural progression. You know, and the Dubai office is like they're like my children, you know, like family, because we're so close. We've got a really good team. So I was never looking outside of the UAE. I was never looking at the bigger picture. I always had a really good relationship with all the other directors and got on with them really well. So it was a surprise when Matthew obviously decided he was leaving. But then he gave me a great opportunity, which when it came our way, you know, it was something I was always going to say yes to. So,
you know, when you come out of this and you have this beautiful long journey, you come from the age of 16 and you finally end up to become the managing director of MFP, which is one of the largest, or should I say the largest facade consultancy in the world today.
Yep.
And it is the largest, there's no denying the fact. And where I'm coming from is, how do you sit today as the MD of such a large facade consultancy and differentiate yourself, or rather your company, from the rest of all the facade consultants?
You know, I don't really focus on what other people are doing. I don't really worry about other people or look at other consultancies. I know there's a lot of other consultancies around, and I know they do well, they win work. I just like to concentrate on what we do. And the main thing I like the Mineheart team to be is to have a better relationship with people and not be consultants. If
That's a standard reply.
Yeah,
That's a standard reply. Paul, I got to get you in a lighter mood. You know, I know you're very tight, but you got to say that. You got to come out with it. I mean, everybody does the same work, right? Why would somebody come to you more than somebody else? That's my question.
Because we are nice people.
We all like people. We all like people. Okay.
No, we're hardworking. We like to have a good laugh. You know, it doesn't matter. We have big facade conferences and we all meet, and then most of us will meet in the bar afterwards. And you know, the people in Façades are a little bit crazy, really. So,
but your Indian managing director or the person heading India never takes us to a bar. So
really,
you got to send him the message there. You got to send him a message there.
I'll invite you to for drinks in Dubai.
Okay. Whenever I come to Dubai, I have a drink with you. But it's okay.
Cool.
Okay.
After one night, you'll understand why people use my heart. Yeah.
Okay. Coming back to it, you know, MFT stands for Mine Heart, more than Mine Heart Façade Technology. Yeah. And you're part of MEP, you're part of civil, you're part of structural engineering. You know?
Yes. Yeah. A lot.
I mean, the whole group, and you have other multidisciplinary engineering options which are available from your office. My question to you is that how has MFT been a standalone entity, correct, and succeeded? And does it help you in being part of the whole organization? Do you offer the same services to even Façade? I mean, when you value your Façade?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're part of a group, and this is not just mine, but you know, I'd imagine all the other multidiscipline consultants, it's the same. So the larger groups see you as a bit of a comfort factor. So obviously they assume a lot that you will do work for them and you'll do this project and you'll agree to these terms. But obviously the group does bring large projects. So like, for example, the HIA airport was a group project, and you know, to work on airports is very, they're very big. A lot of consultancies don't get a lot of opportunities to work on them. So with the group, it does bring some larger projects. It also opens up a lot of other regions that we're not necessarily looking at. So because the larger group has got more offices in more areas, so it actually gives us a lot more spread in terms of business. So as long as I connect with all of these business leads and heads and say, look, guys, we'll help you in this area, they just see that as a additional revenue. So they'll start selling our service for us.
But I also that more than anything, more than Façade consultancy, MFT, there's MFT Façade Technology. More than you offer Façade consultancy, you also offer BMU consultancy. I think you're one of the largest again that offers specialized BMU consultancy as an independent strata from where you're working from. You want to say something about that? How does it help you in the business?
Yes. So I think we've always been a little bit different because we've always employed quite senior guys to do facade access work. But people call it BMU, but I like to call it facade access because you know, a BMU is a very specific item and it kind of categorizes. So we like to stick to the facade access now. So I'm trying to push that terminology. But we've always employed a high caliber person for that position in the Middle East. So again, we bring technical people from trade into consultancy, and it's a service that we offer. We offer a really unique service because it's not just about the design. We can go to an existing building, maybe 10 years old, where the BMU doesn't work or there's problems. They haven't got 100% coverage of the building. And we can actually go and do the inspections of the machine. We can look at the machine, look at machine upgrading. We can help them do costing. We can look at retrofitting. And it's quite unique. And we've just done a full exercise in the Burj Al Arab. They've got about 24 access machines on there. And we've done a report just on dedicated to that. So it's, you know, it comes hand in hand with Façade, but it's also a service that's provided to the FM teams, because the FM teams are the guys that have to live with the facade access and the maintenance of the building. And a lot of the times that they're forgotten in the design process. So it's good that we have a good connection with them as well.
So it's nice what you say, because at the end of the day, the way you summarized it, it's an important integral part of what you offer. And I deeply appreciate your word, you know, on facade access versus BMU, because we were all curtain wallers at one time. And we said we're doing curtain walling. And then suddenly the name came and we were building envelope system guys. And then we do facade. and now facade engineering is the buzzword. So it's like saying everything goes, one level ahead. Having said that, let's put it this way, that you are the managing director of MFT for UK, Middle East, India, Southeast Asia, and Australia. Okay. All these 5 markets I talked about. Can you throw some little light before we go on a very different perspective after this question of how different is each market? I'm repeating my question if you like. How different is India? How different is Southeast Asia? How different is UAE? How different is Australia? And maybe when I say Dubai, I mean Dubai, I'm talking about Dubai, Qatar, Kuwait, all rolled into one. How different is each market from the other? I mean, do they all buy similar systems? Do they buy something different? Do they demand more? Do they pay well, each one of them, or how does it work?
Okay, if you want to get paid regular payments, maybe UK and Australia. The rest of the world suffers the same problem as everybody else.
Problem, you're the best. Come to India. We pay on time.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, part of what I do now, I've become more of a facade accountant. So I look at the offices, how they perform, obviously collections, those kind of things. So, but in terms of the regions, the main things are, it's the different requirements. So, there's different requirements for glass. There's limits on VLT and reflection in Australia. There's limits on reflection and glass specifications in the UK, Singapore. There's different requirements for facades in terms of performance in Thailand. So the key thing is, as a consultant, we sit in the region that we know, and we learn that region, and we learn the requirements in terms of the compliance with the statutory regulation, and also how the contractors work, what the contractors are used to using. There's no point using really complicated systems in a region that's fairly new. For example, like Cambodia, it's a new market, so you need to be sensitive to those kind of areas. So the systems are pretty much the same, and there's unitized everywhere, and the stick curtain wall everywhere. There's some technical differences in terms of the specification, requirements in terms of fire. So you need to really understand all of these. And sometimes one of our offices will get, say, our Singapore office did a job in the Middle East, and the client actually went through the drawings and was not happy because they weren't in line with what they do locally. And the client actually knew me from a previous project, so he rang me and said, "Paul, can you come and help sort this out?" And obviously, I just went through and basically revised the drawings so they met the local requirements. So it's really important that we have these local offices and the local knowledge, because each area is different, and each area, maybe it's only a slight difference, but it has a big impact. And if you produce a set of documents for tender, it goes out to tender, and it doesn't comply with what you do locally, then it's going to cause the client a big problem. So, yeah, facades are very similar.
No. You're not with me on my question. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not able to express it correctly. You're working in different markets. Okay. Systems are common in terms of manufacturing. I would say plus minus 5-10%. I'm coming back to that. Right? You find the markets different in any different way in terms of demanding different types of systems from you. I mean, is the technology more in a different area compared to Australia, or compared to Vietnam, or compared to Cambodia, compared to Dubai, compared to Qatar, compared to India?
Okay, so
because my next question is going to go a little different, so I know from where I'm coming.
So if I think I've got you right, so Australia now is one of the regions where they're looking at renewable energy. So a lot of developers where, they develop and keep the building. So you get two types of developer. One developer will develop and manage, and one developer will build and then sell.
Okay.
So the guys that keep the buildings are now looking at retrofitting. So they're looking at renewable energy. So they're looking at retrofitting the facades, upgrading the facades. The UK, we're looking at really, really low U values. So like carbon neutral buildings. So an overall U value of 1 for the system. So there's a high demand on the system. We've got some closed cavity facades, which is, that these allow.
That's my next question. I'm coming to that. Okay, so
Yeah,
where I'm coming from, where I'm primarily coming from, we're talking about now the facades serving an energy factor. They've been coming out with, let's say, CFD dynamics, which we'll come back to later. But
yeah.
when you say, my primary question to you is that what is the challenge in the unitized system that is being offered world over? Is it almost the same, or are you offering different systems or demanding different systems from different markets? What is
Yeah,
your size and limitation and challenge in terms of unitized systems? That's my primary question in terms of size, shapes, huge glass panels. Are they all almost similar in the world? That's what I'm coming from.
yeah. You find that kind of one of the big differences is depending on the type of MEP equipment. So you find that more in Europe and Australia, the floor spans are a lot less. You're looking at 2.5 meter floor heights. Whereas in the Middle East, you're looking at 3.6. So obviously the panels are big, but within that size, it's still manageable. It's not a big difference. Obviously, the different construction methods. So in the Middle East, we have a lot of post-tension slabs. So they're very thin, a lot of building movement. So movement is critical. The movement reports are critical, so we can design the system. In Asia, it's a very temperate climate, so you don't get much thermal expansion. The temperature is pretty constant, so there's less thought about the thermal expansion, less thought about humidity. Singapore, they look at the safety glass. A lot of countries now won't use fully tempered. Yeah, I mean, pretty much the size of the facades is pretty typical.
So having said that, and if we close the subject on unitized facades, and you say in UK you have 2.5, and you go back and you make 3. Sorry, Australia you said is going to be at 3.5 or 3.6. India is running at 3.9 to 4.1, floor to floor.
Yeah.
And therefore the systems are almost identical. You only structurally make it stronger, and you put in a rib here and put in a rib there, and they're all multi-gasketed. My question now is, when you go to the next area of development, which is now the best in the world, which is where I'm looking at. We're looking at an intelligent facade. Okay? And an intelligent facade, I mean, you know it because you've been on the design board, you obviously know more than everybody else put together, makes use of a self-regulating thermal protection, okay, and a solar control measure to adapt in a dynamic living way. I'm very clear about it. Okay? And only for getting to control the changing weather and temperature conditions, right? Is your office offering a similar kind of product to others who are demanding it in today's market? Have you worked on them in terms of reducing the energy consumption, in terms of solar radiation and timing changing, and where your facades are particularly ecological, and they're fully glazed in terms of single skin and double skin, or rather I would say multi-skin. Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, okay. If you look at I mean, it's an interesting question, because in terms of lights.
You're an interesting man, sir. I want to smile from you. You're so serious here. My questions have to be a little serious when it comes to you.
Yeah. So
I was told that by the sponsor. He said, please don't be as light as ever with him, because he's a very...
So if we go to the very end, what can the client afford? So we can design everything, and there's so many solutions available. There's so many intelligent systems available, but I'm seeing in a lot of areas now, the current market is, they want this technology, but they can't afford it. And so many times we start off with a design and we start looking at these options and integrated blinds or switchable glass, or active louver systems, and then okay, how much is this going to cost? And they start looking at the cost, because they're looking at the build cost, they're looking at the square meter rates. They're not thinking to the future. Now, it's only when you start working on projects where they want to start trying to realize LEED Platinum. But then a lot of that can be offset by just putting additional shading on, like airports. If you do an airport, a big overhang. So there can be passive measures that we build into the design, which we look at. So, but we can assist the client by doing a sun path analysis. With the double skin facade, we can look into doing a CFD analysis. So I'd say if we look at the areas where we're doing that more, it'd be the UK at the moment, and that's
Right.
because it's really low U values we're trying to achieve. We've got the technical ability. It's finding the clients that have the.
No, sir, let me. I'm not even doubting. We respect your organization as the largest. You have the technical ability, and so have so many. You know, when you talk CFD and you talk, you're talking of computational fluid dynamics. I can understand where you're coming from, but the fact is not that. The question is, have you worked on a project? Has MFD worked on a project? Are there clients today ready to spend that kind of money? Has anybody spent that money, or is anything on the drawing board?
Okay, so I'll give you some examples. Yeah, so we did a job in Lebanon, and the whole back wall, which was obviously south facing, was supposed to have solar panels, and obviously the solar panels.
Photovoltaic panels and solar panels. Yeah. Okay, go on.
So the panels are angled, obviously.
Yeah.
And as part of the VE exercise, they value engineered the photovoltaic panels, but it was part of the planning. So we ended up doing ACP cladding in the shape of photovoltaic panels. So we've got all these panels on there, which it looks like shading, but it should have actually been photovoltaics. So, I mean, that it's very simple to add that. In terms of another project we did, which was ADNOC headquarters in Abu Dhabi, which is I think 70-story grade A office building, obviously the headquarters of ADNOC. So on their rear elevation, they plan to have PV panels integrated into the glass, and they had a twin skin wall. Now, it had been designed in America, and we had to do the CFD justification of the design. So you had an outer skin of single glazing, which should have been a PV. That was value engineered, so that instead of having a PV, they put a brick pattern of the squares, so it looked like PV. And then the inner glazing was double glazed. So in a kind of European climate, that works. But in the Middle East, what happens is this thing...
It's the opposite.
It opens. So we had to do the CFD analysis, and we found that at the top of 60 stories, the internal temperature was reaching 128 degrees. So it was actually putting more load onto the building than it was, it was actually just creating more energy. So we had to come up with a design, and we put some louvers, and we did full CFD analysis, and in the end we got this thing to work. But it just shows you that if you don't understand the local conditions and don't start with the correct design, it just doesn't work.
So I have a client in India who turns around every time I meet him. He says, "I want to do photovoltaic cells." He has made an intelligent building in BKC, the important area, and we worked with him in 2008. So okay. we put in Vessi Solar, and we put in a lot of sunshade systems connected to the whole system. And as the sun moves, and as you have the light moving at different times of the day between 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., the louver blades move. So it was different. Okay. And at that time we got involved, and I told him, and I explained to him nicely that there is an architect, there is a facade planner, which consists of, let's say, the facade company, right? And there is a builder himself, with his building engineer. And there has to be a facade consultant. You wouldn't believe me. And finally he said, "No, it's not going to happen work like that." And finally he wanted to put photovoltaic cells. One day I went and got from abroad 3 samples, 3 samples with laminated glass with photovoltaic cells inside. I'm trying to share it with you and with all the viewers. And the photovoltaic cells were silicon cells. Right? And he looked at all 3 of them and he said, "What's the price?" So I told him from 3 different suppliers. And let's say I told him $5, $6, $7. He didn't even bat an eyelid. He didn't, $5. I won't spend that kind of money a square meter. I'm just giving an example. And after some time, it took me an hour to explain to him that what are monocrystalline, photovoltaic cells, what are polycrystalline photovoltaic cells, and what are non-crystalline cells. At the end of it, he got so confused. He understood. He pretended he was confused. And he said, "No, I don't want to go for it. We'll go for ordinary glass." So the question that I'm coming from is there has to be a customer for what you want. And I think, at this stage today, the consultancy is to start offering these kind of products so that we will take Façades to the next level, worldwide. And MFT should take the lead, as far as we are concerned.
Yeah, we you know, you really need clients that really want to spend money and can see the gain on this. And you know, in the current climate, it's difficult. It is difficult.
Okay, having said that, what is the most challenging facade project you have personally worked on? I'm not talking of MFT. I have a couple of your pictures which I'll show you a little later, or photographs.
Yeah, I think the I suppose the interesting one is the HI Airport project which we worked on. And the interesting thing,
I have that photograph.
but the interesting thing is we actually did that twice.
Twice.
Yeah. So initially, the project was done by a leading UK architect, and they had very high expectations of the facade and the design as a leading UK architect. So we did the full design process, and when it was submitted to the client and they went out for costing, it was double the client's budget. So obviously there was some value engineering that needed to be done. There was some redesign and rethinking. So what they did, they put that design to one side. There was a competition between two lead consultants, one of them being Meinhardt. Meinhardt won that competition. So we were reappointed. A new architect was employed, which was ADAS Singapore. And we did the project again. So we actually did it twice.
Oh.
So we have a lot of airport experience because of that. But it's the interest. You know, airports are so interesting because you have to think about the functionality of the airport and the safety of the airport and the glass specification, airside, because you don't want broken glass, access, cleaning of the facade. So it's they're really interesting projects to work on, really challenging.
Having said that, what is the most challenging or the most interesting, most involved architectural firm you have worked with? You've been here for such a long time, independently, with part of Reeds, now part of MFT, world over, with so many architectural firms. Where have you faced the maximum challenges where you found it a challenge to satisfy them?
Yeah, I think it's got to be.
No. I'm being fair to all the architects. I think all of them are very demanding. I'm not saying no. They want the best. They want the best for their clients.
Yeah, I actually thought of a very funny story when I was younger. So when I was younger, as a designer, you take the job and you run that yourself. So you go to all the meetings, you go with the project manager. It's done. It's not, you know, you're fully responsible for that project. And I remember I was doing a project in London, and I was dealing with a London architect, and obviously we were coming from outside London, from the West Midlands, so we were not in the city. And this was it was a European architect. I can't remember where he was from, and he would not approve any of my drawings. And I was always very proud of the details I did. And I remember once I did a corner mullion detail with two mullions, a steel, and it was all nice insulation, nice flashing, everything. And I got my drawing back, and on the drawing he did a picture of a parrot lying on its back, and he did an arrow. It said "dead bird," and then underneath it said, "This parrot died when he saw your detail." And he said,
Did you ever by any chance, because you said you went back way back in 1989, I picked up, I actually picked up my curtain walling way back in 1992, all right? But
okay.
I was a very interesting man at that time. He was very tough. I think he closed down his practice because he was very senior in age. Called Peter Green. Did you ever meet him by any chance? Did you ever work with him?
His name doesn't ring a bell now.
Yeah, okay. He was very strong facade consultant. I picked up a lot from him, and he's not there anymore. So he's not in consultancy. Maybe he's retired or he's writing his own thesis by now. It's a long story. You know, having talked about your projects and from where I'm coming now, I have a few of your pictures. I want to just show it to others, and we'll take it from there. And I want you to talk something about them. You want to say something on this, on the MR beat front?
Yes. So we've, I think over the past 5 years, we've done a lot of email projects. This is probably one of the last ones that they will be releasing, and hopefully it goes ahead. So in typical Middle East fashion, you know, even more, they've got so much land, but it makes more sense for them to build in the sea. So just off the marina, they've put some more reclaimed land, which is just between the marina and the palm. And this is going to be known as Emaar Beachfront. And this is the Elie Saab. Elie Saab's a fashion designer. So this is the Elie Saab branded building. And it looks very, very simple, but the facade is actually inclined in, and we've got a radial corner, and all of the corners and the soffits and the setting out, they wanted it to be exactly perfect. So we had to do all of this in full BIM, every single floor. When you look at it, it looks very simple, but the mathematics to get all this consistency, because when the architect looks up the building, they want to see all this alignment, but these corners are diminishing. So it's curving, inclined, and diminishing. So it was very, very, very challenging just to get that, and it was a key element of the design.
So tell me a simple, tell me a one-line answer to a simple question. When you're in the Middle East and you have a project of this magnitude, at what stage do you think the facade contractor is appointed?
At what stage?
At what stage? Is it when the building is still in its basement, or you come out of the second slab, or you're on the third slab, or where are you?
So what they'll do is they'll obviously the piling plan goes first, but then pretty much when once they start pouring above ground slabs, they'll start looking at the facade appointment, which is too late, because then you should be placing embeds. So sometimes a little later, but once they're ready to start pouring above ground is the normal time.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you look at a similar thing, how is the concept back in, let's say, Australia? Is the timing always the same in Australia, in UK, in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia for that matter?
Yeah, it is similar. I mean, procurement, we used to have large procurement times. So we always used to be procuring material from approved drawings, even before, that they're well above ground. So you've got all the material in hand, but, people can procure glass a lot quicker. They can manufacture glass a lot quicker. So I think these early stage appointments are less common now. I think that's around the world. Yeah.
I'll show you another picture. We'll come back to this.
Okay.
Plot 18 in Dubai. Seems very interesting.
Yeah, so this is a really, really interesting building. It was designed by Foster and Partners from their UK office. And the primary structure with these columns, some of these columns are spanning 40 meters, I think. So it's really interesting. And again, the challenge with this was it's a very stunning building. It's a very simple facade, but that's mainly because Foster's are very simple details, nice details. So there's a lot of work in the design stage to
I don't agree with you. Fosters
it.
don't give you simple details, my friend. Fosters don't give you simple details. Maybe you made the details simple. Maybe NFT made the details simple. Fosters don't give you simple details.
We try.
One more coming, the Opera Grand.
Yeah, okay, so this was our first Emaar project. It was actually DP Architects Singapore who were the architect. We've done a lot of work with them, and they like working with us, so they really push us hard to get on this project. It's pretty much near completion, so I should have some real images. It's a very, very stunning building. It overlooks the fountain. It's near the Opera House, so it's it's a prime location.
Right.
But we've been on this project from design to construction for probably 6 years. So if people are interested, how long is the design stage from when the initial concept is realized by the architect through all the pre-contract documents up to tender, up to issue for construction and obviously construction. It's a long time. It takes a long time to build a building, design and build.
Okay, I'm going to ask you something else. I'll just get this picture off the screen, and I will come back to where I want to ask you now something totally different. What's your opinion and what's your experience? Rather, not your experience, your opinion on free-form, cold bend structural silicon glazed facades, which will open the door to a new world of options. We've just got one building completed recently in Dubai. I think the first of its type. So you know so you know where my question is coming from.
Yeah, well, before that was completed, we already did one in Lebanon.
We did one in Lebanon.
So okay. It's a bank headquarters called Credit Lebanon, or Credit Lebanese is the bank, and basically that's a free-form facade. Yeah, I mean it's by using the Rhino and Grasshopper scripts, it's as long as you've got people that know how to manipulate that software. The scripting is the hard thing to write, but the cold bending limits are going up and up and up. You can do factory cold bending, so obviously you're not relying on the full site cold bending. I think it gives a lot of freedom, and it's economic, but you really need people to understand the forces that are in the structural sealant and the forces that are in the edge of the IGU. So, most consultancies these days can do the cold bending. And when I say consultancies, I mean established consultants.
No, I'm not talking about consultants not doing it. We respect consultants, we respect builders, developers, everybody. We even respect every fabricator. Because every fabricator thinks that if you pick up 5 pieces of aluminum, put 2 verticals, 1 top, 1 bottom, 1 mid transom, you're done. You put a glass, unitized. That's it. It's so simple, isn't it? Put a bracket, 2 bolts, hang it up. That's what everybody thinks, but that's not fabrication. I'm not coming there. My question to you was, and I deeply appreciate where you're coming from. My thing to you is that do you think this will open a new door to the world of options?
I think it's already there. So the technology is there. It's just it needs to be applied on the correct building. It needs to be used correctly. People need to understand the different options. Are we just relying on cold bend glass or hot bend glass or a combination, which there's a few projects, but it gives the computer allows the designer to design something that they couldn't design before, because historically you design something from a mathematical shape that has a formula behind that shape. With the computer software, you can create fluid surfaces. A fluid surface doesn't have any calculation behind that, so you have to develop that. So the only way we can do that is either hot bend glass, slump form glass, cold bend glass. So it really gives artistic license to the architect and a headache.
You know what I like? I put that question in because I know that you're a designer. I know that you were the head of design at Reeves at one time, and you built up your office with your design skills. And if you can't answer this question to all the viewers, then nobody can in the rest of the world, my friend.
I think my connection's not very good at the moment.
No, that's okay. We're almost coming to the end. Another few minutes more. My question to you is very clear. I have one last sensitive question, but which I want to ask you more as the head of MFT and not even as the head, as your experience. What do you think is the life expectancy of SSG, of a bonded structural silicon glazed building? 50 years, 75 years, 100 years. Nobody ever answered that question to me. The last I know that a test was conducted somewhere in Berlin for 23 plus 2 years. What? Hello? Are you on? Are you on? I can see you, sir. We've lost him. We've lost him, ladies and gentlemen. Like he said, he's got a bad connection at his end. We still have another 7 to 9 minutes to go, but we've lost him. I think there's a bad connection. We'll come back to you soon. I was waiting for that answer. I think he was lucky. We are unlucky. Nobody ever gives you an answer. What's the life expectancy of an SSG curtain wall? Having said that, all facade consultants have a project overview. They understand site complexities. They understand building form, structural performance, bonding design in general. At the summit of his success is Paul Grove, heading MFT. We missed him. This is officially to say a big thank you to him, as and when he will get to watch this on IGTV. And it's very nice of you, Paul, to be with us today. To all our viewers, I want to tell you this is end of series 1. We're coming back with series 2, which will come on not the coming Tuesday, but the Tuesday after that. And then we're going for another different series on unmasking the facade with our sponsors, the Zach Group of companies, the Zach World of Façades. Thank you again to Zakir Bhai. Thank you again to Ahad and to the whole team of the Zach Group for making this actually happen on behalf of the entire facade community of India and the rest of the world. Thank you very much.